All right, guys, welcome to Between the Sheets with Leah. I am your host, a God-fearing, action-taking, money-making, manifesting queen, and I am so excited about the guest that I actually have on the show today. In this particular podcast, it is my journey, it is my mission to give our listeners actionable steps that they can actually take away, start to implement into their life almost immediately. And so I'm going to be asking you guys pretty directive questions so that you guys can think about things because you guys are so far in your entrepreneurship, your guys' journey. I'm floored by you. From the moment that I met Lindsey, I heard your guys' story. I have really wanted to just kind of be attached to you. And yet I've only reached out 4 times. So thank you guys so much for being here. Please introduce yourselves.
Yeah. Well, first I just want to say we love you. So attach yourself to us. We would love that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm Amanda Schneider. I'm a real estate agent and an investor. I currently have a team of 3 other agents that I am building. Lindsey and I do all of our investments together. So I'm sure that story will kind of evolve, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, Lindsey Meringer, retired in 21 at a 10th Special Forces Group, and now I like to consider us serial entrepreneurs, investors, and a lot of verticals within real estate, but we'll kind of get into some of the other stuff that we're doing, and some recent exciting stuff that we're going to be going down.
Right, I can't wait to hear about it.
Stuff,
yeah. I was telling Lindsey, you guys are power couple, and that's a goal for me. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit difficult when one partner is a little bit more, wanting to do things, and the other one's a little bit more content,
conservative or something.
A little bit more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys had to deal with that in your relationship, or are you guys just both the go-getters? Let's go for it.
Yeah, fortunately, we're pretty much on the same page about most things. I would say Lindsey is definitely much more positive, and as soon as he hears an idea, he's like, okay, we're going to do this. Now we've been doing real estate investing for 5 years. Now we're going to do Amazon drop shipping and just random things come out of nowhere. And I'm the one that's kind of okay, let's pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Let's slow down. Sometimes Lindsey feels like I'm being a little bit negative, but I'm just much more pragmatic. I just want to think through things. Mm-hmm. So I would say that is kind of the one area that sometimes can cause some turmoil, but really I think it's a good check and balance because he also makes me excited about things and also gets me over the fear of trying something new.
It complements. You guys complement each other.
I feel like we do.
Yeah. One quick thing for people watching, I apologize that I'm dressed like a homeless person. I just came from multiple job sites. And so I just got to throw in that caveat there. But Leah, I think, to that topic, something that you mentioned in the way that couples approach this life, especially in true entrepreneurship, I think it's even vital. To be as successful as you can be. Mm-hmm. We've had friends where they approach it where one person's not on board. They try to be supportive, but it could be whether they're just not or whether it's so foreign to them, I think is probably more common.
Mm-hmm. Foreign.
That with us, we have the same goals and mindset. And I think our biggest strength is that we are not always on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
I am the dreamer and
What is your sign, by the way?
Capricorn.
Oh, okay. I knew it. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
And there's a lot of things that I do that are probably unrealistic. Mm-hmm. I think if she was that exact same way, I would get us into trouble, frankly. Mm-hmm. So I think that...
It's just like in having one couple that spends more money than the other, and if they were both that way, it could be a lot of trouble.
100%.
Yeah, and if he was like me, then we'd never do anything. So
so it's that good balance. Yeah, I think it works really well.
I like that you kind of brought that up because I heard in one of the podcasts, and I think you were asking, or maybe is it Jamie, that was asking Lindsey if there was anything that's kept you fear. Fear has been, something that's held you back, and you pretty much said no, you didn't really think that it was. Is it something for you that's held you back in some of the decisions that you guys have made?
Potentially, I would say a little bit, just fear of the unknown. When it comes to real estate, because we've been doing it for so many years, I am all in with that because I feel comfortable. Sure. We've shown proof of concept. We were looking at buying a storage complex, and that immediately I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. We don't know anything about running a storage complex. So I do immediately have those fears, but having Lindsey here to talk through it, he's such he's so business minded and has so many connections that if we don't know the answer to something, we can usually rely on our network to help us. So yes, I would say fear to some degree. It's never been a paralysis where I'm like, I don't want to do anything, but getting started in something new is always a little fearful for me.
Sure. That uncomfortable spot that I'm kind of finding myself in right now. So let me ask you guys, this is going to sound like a funny question, but how old are you?
I'm 42.
I'm 40.
I love it. And here's the reason why that I asked that is because there are many people that feel like either they're too old or that it's too late for them to begin something new, whether it be investing, whether it may be just jumping into real estate, becoming, maybe it's a licensed contractor. What would you say to people that are in their late 30s or in their early 40s that are thinking that that time has already passed for them?
It's definitely not too late. We met when I guess we probably met when I was 32. We got married when I was 33. And when we met, I had nothing. Like, I was that operator. We made pretty good money in special forces. And, but I was that guy I'd come back and go first class to Vegas or the Virgin Islands or, my ability to spend money. I grew up a pretty poor kid, and, my ability to spend money when I have it is substantial. So legitimately I had a Jeep and probably $500 in my bank account. And through everything that we've done together, we're officially millionaires. And you're going to work for it if you're doing it later. But what is that, 7 years, to go from literally nothing to 7 figures.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's only going to, you have money to make more money. And as we have expanded our network and just continue to learn, every year just gets better. So, yeah. And we can get into, I'm sure you're going to ask kind of like what our thoughts are on some of the initial things to do that.
Yes.
For sure. And there's going to be multiple answers to that. But, yeah, absolutely changing your mindset as to it's too late,
I think I agree. I think age is just kind of an excuse. We don't have kids, so I would say in that regard, it's probably been easier for us because we can like grind late hours, do those kinds of things, invest, take our money and put it in investments, etc. But for a lot of the parents out there, your focus is obviously raising your kids for 10 to 15 years of your life. So if you find yourself late 30s, early 40s, now your kids are finally out of the house, like this is the perfect time. Now you've all that time you were spending with your, raising your children. Now you can spend that time in building your investments, your passive income.
I think I 100% agree with you guys. And I think that's also why I was so drawn to you guys, because I heard in the podcast, which I loved that you said, by the way, that it is your personal goal to either meet with somebody who's doing something better than you or meet with somebody that is not as successful as you. And that piece for me right there, that blew me away. And it also actually inspired me to try to do the same, because I'm always looking for people that are doing more than me, but maybe I'm not giving enough back as well, which you had mentioned in the podcast, in my time and trying to mentor those that are, not as successful either. So pretty awesome. And the age thing, I just think that that's important because so many people will bring that up and say, I'm just, this is not for me. And I want to give the listeners a background story, a little bit of how we all met. And that was through my friend, first and foremost, introduced us because I was kind of teeter-totting on the Airbnb whole deal. So she said, you need to meet with these guys. They're already in the business, which you have since sold your piece out of and kind of left that because of the working.
I hated it, frankly.
The management company.
So to the listeners, not everything you try is even if it's successful. And the company, I'm really proud of it. It continues to be successful, but it was ruining my life. Like you will completely find the balance between happiness and success and fulfillment, and you're going to have to play with that.
I like that you said that, because what would you say, how would you define your purpose in your entrepreneurship? Both of you guys, how would you define purpose for you?
Are you basically, what's our why?
Yeah.
Sure. So I think it's very similar for both of us, but we just enjoy spending time together. So for us, the whole point is to build a net worth that allows us to basically have freedom of time and place. So meaning we can be wherever we want at any time and still be earning the amount of money we need to continue to build our wealth.
Yep. Mine is to have the freedom of time, to have the freedom of choice, to pursue all of the things that make me happy, and at the same time to pursue all of the things that provide me fulfillment. And I don't believe that you ever get a 50-50 there, but to be able to have the focus as they go 60-40, go back and forth with each other. If one starts to get out of balance, if I'm focused too much on myself, or too much on others, to be able to dial that back and just kind of live a life where I can kind of go through that 60-40 happiness and fulfillment. But every choice that I make in pursuing those is I'm free to make. I'm beholden to no one or anything.
And in that business, you didn't feel like you had that. That was what it was kind of.
You had no freedom of time.
It was legitimately 100-0 of beholdenness to other people. It was not fun.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think part of our purpose too has shifted a little bit to really be able to have the resources and the time to give back, because kind of going through this financial freedom journey, investment journey, whatever you want to call it, has completely changed our life. And I don't feel like it's something that it's kind of a secret that a lot of people don't know. You know, we don't get a lot of financial education in school. We're taught like, just find a job. You're going to work the same job until you're 65. Then you're going to retire or take a pension. But by then, you know, how's your health? How's your desire to want to travel, and et cetera? So we have found this freedom that we want to share with other people, and we want to educate them how to do it too.
Yeah. Okay. So what was, and I may have heard it already in the podcast,
Yeah,
but you guys but my listeners haven't. So I want to ask, what was the driving moment for both of you guys? Was it on the drive? Was it when you guys were listening to a podcast? What made you pursue, I guess, entrepreneurship, number one? And what was that driving force that was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been evolving. I don't know what Lindsey's opinion of that is, but the time when we knew we wanted to get into real estate was when we were still dating, and we took what we call our all or nothing road trip, where it was basically, once we come back from this, we're either going to move in together or we're going our separate ways.
Wow.
And so during that road trip, we listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad. We listened to a ton of Bigger Pockets podcast, which is about real estate investing. And we were so set on starting that journey. So when we got married a few months later, we didn't have a wedding. We just went to the courthouse, got married there. And that day we started looking for our first house, which turned into our first investment. But I think, and we did that repeatedly for the next few years. And so I think it just continued to evolve. And then Lindsey was ready to retire. I hated my office job and decided to get my real estate license. And that is the best decision I ever made because of the freedom that it allowed me to set my own schedule, you know, earn as much money as I want. So like I said, it's been evolving, but we're just getting a bigger and bigger taste of what we can do as entrepreneurs rather than working for someone else.
Yeah, it is evolving. The initial aspect of it for sure was the road trip, and I had zero goals in that. I wanted to be an operator forever and then just retire. What's funny is I told people my life goal was to make $52,000 a year. Growing up, $1,000 a week. I thought that was the epitome of success. It's going to evolve, you know, as we started to listen to those books, a light bulb went off in my head, and I think it kindled something that was probably in me that I didn't realize. Which is kind of a cool feeling, frankly. But then as we started to get into it, as your network expands and you start to see other people's experience and you start to have experiences, and it makes you kind of excited about trying that different vertical, or even now we're trying different industries. And man, now it's all I ever think about, you know?
How does one grow their network when they're in a place of not knowing people, of not knowing millionaires, of not having masterminds, or not even knowing that that's available? What would your recommendation be?
Yeah, I mean, first I think you need to be listening to podcasts like this. You need to be listening to books that open up your mind, and then you will start to have that desire to reach out to other people. I mean, there's tons of meetups, even if you just go on meetup.com or whatever it is, like there's tons of real estate meetups. Eventbrite always has a lot of things. So it can be hard, especially if you don't know people. I'm just even trying to think of how you and I have gotten to know the people that we've known.
I have this answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's very evolving in
Yeah.
all the things that we've done. Like, for instance, we have gone through a ton of contractors before we finally found like the contractors we love for every different trade, et cetera.
And before you answer, Lindsay, because I do want to hear your answer, but let me also kind of flip that question. How
Yeah.
many people have you had to let go? Friendships, family members, anything like that.
So I've always, because I'm kind of an introvert, so I've always been somebody who, I don't want you to suck a lot of my time. And if you do, I can't.
Yeah.
I just physically can't spend time with you. So that has never been super hard for me. But I'm always very conscious of who I want to spend time with. And if I'm saying yes to spending time with you, then we both are giving each other something, you know, like Lindsey and I've talked about, like a couple people in his past. I'm just like, why do you even want to spend time with those people? There's time sucks. And I think it's something that he's thought about a lot too. And that a lot of that has changed. So.
All right, so let's go back to question number 1.
So whatever your goal is, well, are you talking about like location, like you're in the middle of Oklahoma in a 30-person town? Like,
I mean, I guess if you know, it could be anything, because there's going to be excuses all across the board of why people either can't get out there. Maybe they're introverted. Maybe they're in the middle of nowhere. What can they do to start to build a network of people?
So regardless, my answer to in any situation is whatever your passion is going to be, whatever that lane is going to be, is you talk about it with everybody.
True.
Like, you just never shut up about it. If people tell you to shut up about it, ties to the second question, cut them out of your life. And I don't care if we talked about this on the podcast with Jamie, and I don't know if you listened to that one, but I don't care if they're family. Like, I'm a family person. You know, I come from a pretty broken home, and my family's pretty supportive, you know, but if they weren't, I just wouldn't talk to them. You know, I'd probably, you know, say I love you ever so often, or say, how you doing? But my day-to-day, I just don't ever talk to them. I think that in terms of moving on from people, a lot of it happens naturally. I'm so focused and so busy that people just kind of fall to the wayside if they're not that driven and that focused. I haven't actually had to make a conscious effort to be like, I'm not hanging out with. Yeah, you know, they just text, and sometimes, you know, I
just don't answer back.
I just
heard you
don't
say.
answer back.
That's a good point. It's actually pretty easy.
Honestly. But it's a natural thing that just kind of comes. And, you know, to kind of put it in context of the person that's in a city like Colorado Springs, or the person that is in a 30-person town within Oklahoma, you know, again, that's just an arbitrary example. Poor Oklahoma, yeah. I just think that's what makes me think there's probably 30-person town somewhere. You have internet. Like, you can get on every forum. You know, if real estate happens to be your thing, Bigger Pockets is legitimately what changed our lives. I don't listen to it as much, but it's a forum of millions of people. Like, just get on there and just start talking to people, and then also move. You know, like, once you have that network, there's a town that is equally affordable, that you can find a job if you have good work ethic. Like, move to a tertiary city, and then move up to, you know, a secondary city that it could be a little bit more expensive, but you continue to move up the rungs of expanding your network. And moving out of that 30-person town could be terrifying for someone, but there's some things that you're just gonna have to rip the Band-Aid off, frankly.
So many of the things we're talking about all involve getting out of your comfort zone, 100%. And that has definitely been easier that Lindsey and I do it together. Like, especially, you're saying I'm somewhat introverted, like going into a room of 30 people I don't know is not my favorite. So having somebody that is very extroverted and will talk to anyone has made it a lot easier. So I totally get that, but you just have to be uncomfortable sometimes.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about all of the ventures that you guys are kind of involved in right now.
I'll let you, because you.
Sure. So kind of, I'll do a short overview, and then you can ask if you want a deep dive into any more of them. So real estate is our main thing. We are currently selling 2 single families. We want to move into the apartment building space. So by the end of the year, we will buy our first apartment building. After firing so many contractors, I grew up building houses. So I got licensed here. So I have a general contracting company. It's generally for our properties, but I'm so pissed at what people charge here and the quality of the work that I've been kind of almost doing like a Robin Hood contractor thing, where I'm helping her clients, just people who end up in binds. We launched into oil and gas investing, so trying to look at some passive investments. We just got back from Florida. We are joining with a 7-figure company of building out a medical trauma bag company, a vertical of that we're this one could be life-changing. More details to come on that. That'll be a early 2024 podcast to see how that one's coming for an update. But this one could be life-changing. We have the e-commerce companies that so far has not been a success, but I feel like we're finally with the right company. So we're hoping that takes a turn. And, those are most of the verticals of investment so far. And, then outside of that, just continuing to try to mentor how we can and things of that. I run a transition event for Green Berets, trying to get them access and placement to, there you go. There's kind of a glimpse into how to expand your network or how your network can expand is people get to me and then I give them access to my network. I just kind of vet them and see, make sure that they have the right drive, and then I walk them to more successful people.
Both of you guys are involved in a mastermind, correct? Of some sort, or is that what you would call it?
We aren't right now. No. We ran one for a while, and then COVID kind of hurt that. But we were running a real estate mastermind.
So I have coaches.
Oh, yeah.
I have a performance coach, and then I have a very high-level business and leadership coach.
Okay. And what on that same subject, what would you say is one of the most profound things that either your mentor or your coach has told you that has helped you to be successful? One thing that's just like stood out to you.
Your why.
Defining your why.
100%. And it's something like when I gave mine earlier, I have put years of thought into that. That has been continually evolving.
I was just going to ask, is it evolving for you?
Yeah. I don't know that it ever becomes stagnant, because I think your why will change. I think that we will reach a success level, or when I truly fill out that why of the freedom of time and choice to, find that balance of happiness and fulfillment in the things that I do. I think that I'm going to encounter experiences in that life that are going to change my why. A little bit.
You guys have both said on the podcast too. So your podcast is Booking Into Financial Freedom.
Yes.
And you can be found on all forums, Apple, Spotify, YouTube.
Yep,
correct?
exactly.
So if you guys please go check that out, because I'm already floored by it. I'm like 3 to 4 episodes in, and I'm already in love with it. So I figured I was going to start from the beginning and just kind of work my way up and make sure that I'm not missing anything.
Yeah. No,
any gems there.
Yeah. Our whole purpose is to basically, we pick one book a month that's just about improving yourself and building a path to financial freedom. So it's kind of like a book club where we announce what book we're going to read that month, and then we do 4 episodes deep diving the book, so you can kind of read along with us and then listen to the podcast. Yeah.
Leah, sorry to interrupt you, because I have something that fundamentally is very important to me, and it ties to your question there, and it's something I work on a lot with the coaches, but it's not so much. I don't know if they verbatimly said it, but I believe, and I think that you would share this, that we are as successful as we are, and we have become as successful as we are, as fast as we are, is because we are not financially driven.
I was going to just ask you about that. That's what I was going to say. I think in your podcast, you said that financial is not the motivation. Like, the money is not the motivation. You guys said in your why, it's both time and the freedom of choice to be able to do whatever it is that you want. The financial is a part of that, but it's not the actual motivation.
Sure. In the society that we live in, to have the freedom of time, it requires a certain level of finance. It is what it is.
Right.
But we make every decision off of just being good people. And money as a byproduct of those decisions has been amazing to us. Whether it was how I was interacting with a guest when I had the management company, or how I interact with clients, or right now there's a buyer that is trying to screw this old woman. Her husband passed away a few years ago and didn't get the house that she wanted to buy, so she reported a bunch of things to the city. Now, the city, if this woman doesn't fix these things, the city's going to put a lien on her house. This 80-year-old woman who's just trying to move away back to where her family is. So that's what I'm doing. I've been on the phone with them today, and tomorrow I'm going out to see how do I bring in my network, or as a contractor, and I'll do everything for free, But second and third order effects, that selling agent probably has, a great taste in his mouth, and a further deal down the line could come through. But is that the goal? No. But does that stuff happen? Absolutely. I'm not a real karma guy, but I think that being a good person, man, not only does it make life really easy, but
No, I heard
stuff
you say that
comes.
you're a little bit more woo-woo.
yeah, for sure.
And so am I.
Yeah.
100%. Whether it's, I always say it's just a universal law. Whether
Yeah.
it's, a Christian law in the Bible, or whether it's just you put out what you get out. I truly, truly believe that. How much of your success would you say in regards to giving has made you guys even more successful?
I mean, all of it. It's hard to put a number on it, but I was even just thinking as you were talking about that, is when we got to the point where we basically stopped worrying about money. Like, it can be applied to anything, like going out to eat. When we were in a certain financial point in our life, maybe we were going out to eat and we're like, oh, we shouldn't order an appetizer, or maybe just like one drink, And finally we got to the point where it's like, if you stop focusing on all those little things, like the universe, like you and I think, is going to provide for you, because you're not focusing on all those little things. It's the bigger picture. We took a trip one time a few years ago, again, when we weren't as financially comfortable as we are now. Our flight got all messed up. We had to spend $1,500, $2,000 to fix our flight, or no vacation at all. And that was a lot of money for us at the time. And we did it. And now, years later, it had no impact on us, like having to spend that money. And so obviously a person needs to be aware of their finances. Do not be spending beyond your means. But my whole point is, like, don't be so focused on, I can't afford this, I can't do this, because all of those can'ts are just all limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We don't have the perspective of having children, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
And I know that people who are listening to this are going to be like, oh, they don't fucking, oh, shit. Okay, good.
We're all authentic.
They don't have kids. Like, I can't do that. They don't know what they're talking about. It's like, yes, I agree that there's a financial constraint. I have friends who have multiple kids, but I also have friends who have multiple kids that are damn successful. And you just find a way to work around it. You prioritize a little different. And yeah.
Speaking of which, your success and what you guys have accomplished so far with multiple businesses, the entrepreneurship, the investing, is super, super inspiring. But what is something that people, I guess, don't often understand or correlate with being successful that you think is important to say?
the stress level, probably, I would say, maybe.
The sheer amount of actual work it takes.
Yeah. And, it's a tough balance, because I do believe that you have to be, again, get outside your comfort zone. You have to be a hustler. But there's also a point where you have to draw a boundary. Like, you need to stop working at a certain point every night so that you can spend time with your spouse. And so it's that.
We're still working on that.
Yeah, we are. And again, I have like a fundamental belief that you don't have to work yourself into the ground to be successful. You truly don't. But when you're building your businesses and building that initial success, it is really hard.
It's
because
a battle.
It's
a battle. And I was going to ask you too, because being a Capricorn, I feel like for me, it is go, 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 go. Like work, work, work. And when I'm not working, or if I'm not listening to a podcast, or if I'm not bettering myself or doing something, I feel like a loser.
Sounds like you.
And
he has the same mentality a lot of times.
So I don't know if I 100% believe in work-life balance. Like I honestly don't know if I believe that yet, because I haven't found that true, I guess, rhythm and flow of it.
Yeah.
I always feel like when you were doing like this, it's a constant for me. If you put too much in this one's not, and so it's always like this. This is, and maybe you call that the balancing act. Where, love, desire, the need to keep going and achieving, sometimes it's easy to get lost in that. How do you bring yourself back to center?
Shrooms.
Yeah.
Not even kidding.
Yeah.
Microdosing for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this Sunday I took enough that I couldn't drive, so that I couldn't drive and go do stuff.
Yeah.
I like to take it and I accomplished tasks around the house that always seem to get put last. But then I just laid in my yard for in the grass for 2 hours and just listened to the birds. And I thought about, stuff I had to do and just kind of problem solve. But, yeah, 100%.
That's been a game changer for you.
Life-changing. 100%.
What about you, Amanda?
It's hard, because I am just somebody who just goes and goes. And to some degree, I find some solace. I like doing that. But we recently found tennis. So usually for me, it's some type of physical outlet. So I used to be big into CrossFit. I used to be a
Your
runner.
arms are like So dope.
She's so jacked.
You are so jacked. I'm like looking at you when you walked in, like, okay, goals.
But
42, no excuses.
Yeah.
But we recently found tennis, so we've been spending a lot of time with tennis. So for me, it's just having some kind of hobby. Like we do our fair amount of, watching TV to unwind and stuff, but we're just not really people that are just going to like lay around. So for me, having another hobby that's also kind of active, but it allows me to not think about work has been huge. So just going to play tennis or, getting with our pro and getting better, having a goal to get better at something that's not work. Has been huge for me.
Yeah, and two other things. One for me is it's always been fitness. Is pre-workout should be illegal, and then just like
going to the
going
gym.
Blind with metal in my
What
head.
did you say? Pre-workout
That should be illegal.
He means taking something that like amps him up
okay.
before he goes to work.
Gotcha.
and just crushing myself in the gym. But then also, if you've been following along with 4 Hour Work Week,
I don't think she's there yet.
Not there yet.
Yeah.
Have you read it? 4 Hour Work Week? But mini vacations. I'm a big goal person. So like I do a huge, which I don't know if you saw on my social media early in the year, but I've got 2 huge whiteboards in my office.
I'll just be honest with you. I didn't know who Calvin Hobbes was.
Oh, I love that.
I had no
that.
idea who Calvin Hobbes was.
Yeah.
And then I think some post finally came up and I was like, wait, is that Lindsey? And then I was like,
awesome.
oh, okay, let me start like paying attention because I didn't know who it was.
Yeah,
awesome.
that's his favorite cartoon from when he was younger. So.
Yeah. I have a whole thigh sleeve of Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
But one of my goals was to travel 60 days this year, so 2 months. And I think we're in the 30s now.
With mini trips.
Mini trips.
Yeah.
100%.
I love mini trips. We love to go get away and take mini trips.
Especially in Colorado, you can do it fairly cheap. Just go camping. Do 2-3 days or whatever it may be, and
Explore
but that's
Colorado, because we haven't done that.
yeah. And a lot of times when we're vacationing, we still work. It's like, but we work for a couple hours a day, and there's an aspect of that is once you really get into this, you honestly enjoy work.
Yeah.
There's an aspect of it. We tend to work too much, and it can burn out a little bit.
Yeah.
But we were in Costa Rica, and we were at a hotel on the beach, and both of us were working from our laptops on the beach, and we stopped that and just took a second to reflect on that and how beautiful that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and just instead of just turning it off and being like, oh, I don't need to be working, it's reflecting on that moment. Like, wow, we're working from a beach in Costa Rica.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah,
holy
exactly.
shit. I love that.
Yeah.
I find that it's easier to coach somebody who's on the same page as you. Hunger, drive, you said it yourself. You kind of vet people out. And maybe you do the same. Do you coach a lot of people, Amanda, like as well?
Yeah.
I mean, you have your podcast, so that's you can potentially reach all kinds. But like personally, like one-on-one or?
Not as like, a profession, but I do have my team that I'm building. So I have 2 agents. I just brought on a 3rd agent yesterday. So it's a lot of mentorship with them because they're all completely new agents. So definitely.
What do you, and maybe this is just not something that you guys even deal with based on the prior answers, but if somebody has zero knowledge in something but they're very hungry and you see that, what would be like an implementation for you to begin to coach them?
For us, the biggest thing is we don't care what your level of knowledge is, but we do care about the hunger. Yeah. So Lindsey always says, like, he will coach anyone, but if I tell you to do something and you don't do it, then we're done. I'm not coaching you anymore. Sure. I'm not going to spend my time.
I mean, yes, I read that book.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But he's big on that, and I totally agree with that too. For me, it's been, this is my first time in real estate, at least, like mentoring people. So I myself now have a mentor who's helping me to mentor others. So I'm big on that too, of like, if I don't know it, then I need to get help to help these people.
Yeah, the first thing that I would say to anyone is books. And before Amanda's podcast, I would just text people what I thought like the top 3 or 4 fundamental books that they need to listen to, depending on what they were trying to do. That might change a little bit. I personally still think The One Thing is the most important book. But now I got into Amanda's podcast, and that's not just because she's my wife. I think that
she's dropping damn gems on it.
It's amazing, and those books are curated for a reason because they are fundamentally the most important books that have changed our lives. And if I tell you to follow that podcast and I check in a week or 2 and you haven't you're not well into the first or second book, we probably won't have a second meeting. Or if you ask,
it's a waste of your time.
Complete waste of my time.
Right.
And there is one thing that you do not do is waste my time.
Right.
There's nothing more valuable to me than my time, other than my dog.
Okay, I have a couple more questions before I'm going to let you guys go, because I want to definitely keep you guys on time. But my one question would be kind of back into the investing. You talked about oils, and you guys are getting into that. I remember having a side conversation with you where you said, like, you got to have some big money to even, like, get started in that.
Accredited investing, yeah.
Okay, so if somebody does not have zero for investing, they don't have a VA to get a new home, where would you tell them to begin to start if they really are hungry to get on this investment type of life?
So I truly feel that, and I think Lindsey feels the same way, but real estate is the easiest investment to start getting in because real estate gives you the power of leverage. So I understand not having much money, but everyone can save $10,000. And with $10,000, you could use the CHAFA loan, which is a program that Colorado offers for housing assistance to buy your first property. It has to be your primary. But by doing something like that, you buy your first and then you have roommates to help you pay the mortgage, which is what Lindsey and I did. And we did that the first 4 years of our marriage. We would have 2 roommates. Again, a little bit easier for us because Lindsey was gone a lot with deployments and training and stuff. But still, I mean, oftentimes we were living in a 1,200 square foot house with 4 people in the house, sometimes 3 dogs. So it was a lot, you know, but that having those roommates helped us either live for free or live very, very, you know, inexpensively. $200 maybe we had to contribute towards the mortgage. So to me, that is the easiest way. Start to build your wealth through real estate. So you buy your first property, you have roommates. Now you put $10,000 down. Say you were able to buy a $400,000 house. You now have an asset that's appreciating at $400,000 without you having to have that physical money. So that's where you start. And as it appreciates, you could maybe take a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, to get some money out of the property. You can maybe
check.
Yeah.
Check. Okay, cool. Keep talking.
Yeah. You can repeat that process. Typically, lenders will want to see that you live in your primary for a year, but you can repeat that and buy another primary and just continue to do that. The money that you're saving by having roommates, put that into it.
Do you have to have a lease on your other one to count as another primary?
Sometimes.
Okay.
It just kind of depends. You have to
That's
work with the
probably
lender.
a little bit more involved on like another podcast, but okay.
And obviously they count the debt against you, so they like to see a lease so that they can see you're making money, et cetera. But I mean, there's a few like nuances to it that you have to know, but any agent that you work with or lender that you work with that's familiar with real estate investing can guide you through all that. So that's how we got started. And like he said, we literally had zero. I had maybe $100,000 in an IRA, but we didn't touch any of that. And other than that, we had zero money. And that's how we got started. And yes, we had the VA home loan, which allowed us to get into our first property with no money down. But there are a lot of first-time home buyer programs out there that can help you do the same thing.
I didn't even know CHAFA still existed, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to touch on real quick, because you just mentioned the $100,000. I want to be very clear that that was not used to build our success. Like, I just don't want... Like, because I hate when I'm listening to a podcast and they're like, oh, I struggled. Oh, my dad gave me $500,000. No, that $100,000 in an IRA, we did not use that.
Well, and that was all money I saved. It's not like anyone gave that to me. That was through like deployments and things like that, and money that I had put
100%. I just don't want the people listening. They're like, I got you. No. Everyone, you are correct. Everyone can save $10,000. If you're listening to this, you're like, I can't do that. No, you have excuses as to why you can't do that. If you have a job that you can't make that money, 1, get a second job, work more, have some work ethic. 2, if not, go work for a contractor. Like, go learn a skill. And if you bust your ass on a job site, you will quickly get raises and you will quickly make really good money. I truly believe that. That's in the trades is where work ethic can get you really damn far. Because then even as a contractor, you learn enough skills, you'll be a handyman. You can't do permit stuff, but I mean, for handyman stuff, I charge like $75 an hour right now. You know, it's amazing. But also, like, you're gonna suck. Is that you? We lived with roommates for probably the first 4 or 5 years of our building our success, and the power of leverage is truly why we were able to grow so fast and become meet the threshold for accredited investors. But man, sometimes it sucks so bad. We would have multiple roommates with multiple dogs in a single story ranch. Like,
well, I've just recently thought about renting out this room, and then but at the same time, I'm kind of like, do I really want to? Because I mean, a room right now for rent is like $700 a month.
Yep.
you're also at the point where you can like make that choice. Like, you've done enough entrepreneurial things that you may not have to grind where that $700 is going to take you to the next level.
Right.
Some people rent out that room.
Yeah.
100% rent every room in your house.
And I just want to add too, if you have kids and you're like, well, I could never do that because I have kids. I have plenty of clients who I've helped them find a house where it's usually like a ranch with a basement or a 2-story with a basement. And we find a way to make that basement, a door.
Private,
Yes,
converted.
exactly. And there's a separate entrance to the basement so that person can come and go. They never have to interact with the kids. Yeah. So again, just limiting beliefs, and you're always going to have an excuse not to do something. But on the flip side, there's always a way to make something work.
Yeah, a house with a cottage or a separate access. If I could do anything starting over, especially if I had the VA loan, but it would be a fourplex, 100%.
Getting started in a fourplex?
Getting started in a fourplex. I think that is I wish we could go back and do that as our first property. So you don't believe
that there's I forget his name, but he says like 30 doors or less, then it's not like worth it.
I mean, why wouldn't I totally know what you're saying. And I've had a lot of people say that to me. And especially when they've never done any investment and they come back to me like that, I'm like, okay, then you're never going to invest. Because you don't have money to buy a 30
people say 30 doors or less, I'm like, what the hell? Like I was looking at like a very conservative start. Yes. And then it scared me because it was like, oh no, if you're not doing 30 doors or, more than
don't listen to those people.
Yeah, that's 30 doors or more is what I mean. But
and I think you can scale like that. And that's some heavy networking where you're basically syndicating, coming in, with no money, using other people's money, Sure, if you are, I think that requires a level of being an extrovert that is not common. I'm a pretty significant extrovert, and I have investing acumen, and that would be still a lot for me to do, So like that takes a special breed. I think your question was more as to like, what is the general person can do? And that ain't it.
Yeah.
No doubt. Because let alone the average person, investors aren't doing that.
Yeah.
So
I can't think of, obviously we're biased towards real estate, but I can't think of another investment that gives you the same return that still allows you to have a physical asset other than real estate. Because you could save $10,000 and invest it in the stock market and potentially do really well, but you also have the risk of losing everything. Yeah. Where in real estate, you will always have the physical asset. Even if our market crashes, housing prices go down, you still have a physical asset that's worth something. And as long as you hold that, and while the market builds itself back up, you're going to be great.
So something that I've become a super fan of that, again, we probably don't have time on this, but I mean, we just want to run long after she has to leave. We can get into it. Is entrepreneurship through acquisition. So you save up that 20 grand, get an SBA loan, 90-10 debt, and you could buy a $200,000 company that has been in business for however many years and has, an employee or two, has financial metrics that you're getting past, you're skipping the startup phase. If I could do it again, I would not start another company. Basically what we're doing when I talk about with the medical bags is we are doing that. We're just getting pulled in and building off of the backbone of a existing company.
But you're actually taking ownership of the company.
We are building a secondary company with them where it's going to have a separate division basically. But they have an equity stake because they have all of the supplier, warehouses, distribution, everything. We're building off of their backbone and giving them equity for that backbone. And then we're going to brand and market and build out our side of the company. So it's kind of a combined ETA. It's going to be awesome, but our barrier to entry is minimal with that because we don't have to buy their company. Yeah. But what myself and Justin were doing is we were looking for a company to buy with the SBA loan. SBA loan is an incredible program. You do 10% down, or if they want 20, you could do 10% down, 10% seller carry, which is very common in kind of the selling of the business. But that's something I would highly encourage people. Again, the books. Walker Deibel, Buy Then Build. That is your first book that you need to read. Again, it's Walker Deibel, Buy Then Build, if you want to look down that route. But someone who has an operations mindset, is super motivated, that is something I would heavily look into, which I just learned about last year, frankly.
Another question for you, Amanda. On your podcast, is there an episode, which I don't know yet, because I was going to actually comment on it, on creative financing?
Not where we really dive into it.
Can I
Good
make
idea,
a
though.
request?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We've talked about doing some kind of like side podcasts that aren't necessarily just recapping the book, but taking a topic and deep diving it. So yeah, we could definitely do something
Yeah,
like that.
I heard you mention it a few times, and it's come up in a bunch of different language and people that I've been speaking to, and I'm really curious to know about the creative finance because I think I struggle in that. So
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to wrap up with a couple of questions, and these ones are going to be Fireball. This is off of one of my favorite podcasts that I do, and or not that I do, that I listen to, and so I want to ask you guys some spitfire questions, and I want you to try to answer with one answer.
Ooh,
Just
okay.
one word answers as best as you can.
Okay.
One word.
One word. Okay, so
Okay.
the first one's going to go to you, Lindsey. I no longer tolerate.
Laziness.
Okay, good one. And Amanda, being average will.
One word. I'm going to make this one word. Get you nowhere.
That's okay. That's it. You know what it is. Yeah, a couple words. Lindsey, the last win I celebrated was.
Florida.
He's sticking to the one.
Right?
Okay.
The trauma bag company taking us on
Okay.
is really
That was
is
in
what
Florida.
was, yeah.
Okay. Amanda, the way to get out of your own way is.
Learning from others.
I love it. Lindsey, being
Should have said books.
Same thing.
yeah, it really is. Yeah, books. Lindsey, being a leader means.
Inspiring.
Amanda, my favorite question to ask someone is. Oh, yeah, that's more than one word. I'm looking. I'm like, wait. How do you?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Okay. Lindsey, you can inspire someone by.
Doing.
Amanda, my favorite self practice is.
That's tough because I'm struggling with that. Probably fitness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lindsey, I wasn't a good person when.
Cocaine.
Thank you for being so honest. Oh, I love that. These are the backstories, and this is another reason when he came to the Mastermind. Thank you guys for playing.
Yeah. That's tough. I don't think well on my feet, so that's great.
It really is the hot
Yeah.
seat. It really is the hot seat. But when he came down for the Mastermind, I was like astounded by the first half of your life. I was like, holy shit! Like you meet people and you get this, and then you dive a little bit deeper and you're like, wow, like you've already experienced so much, and so. Thank you for being real, raw, and authentic. That's very important to me because there are people that need to hear, I was on cocaine, I was on drugs, I don't have any money, I was at my wit's end, I was living in my car, but I'm still successful. Now I am successful. Now I've decided to make these things because I believe that motivation goes away, that it's discipline that is going to keep you going. And I struggle with it. I struggle. I mean, I am far more successful than many people in my circle, which I know I need to evaluate. And yet I'm not as successful as I want to be. That's for sure.
I think if you make it a point to start to, give back or have the coffee with somebody who's less successful, then your mindset around that will really change. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give yourself some credit.
How successful do you want to be?
My why has evolved as well. And it was very surface level. I'll just be honest. It's like, I want to do this for my family and I want to create legacy. Okay, but why? Mm-hmm. And there was a challenge that somebody kept asking me why until we got to the nitty gritty. And even listening to your guys' the podcast and listening to when you said time, because I believe a book by Brendan Bouchard is the Motivation Manifesto, and he talks about how freedom is the ultimate. That in everything that we choose is freedom. Mm-hmm. Freedom of choice, freedom of time, freedom of whatever the case may be. And ultimately, freedom is my ultimate why in everything, so that I can have legacy, so that I can give to my kids, so that I can go wherever I want. I would love to be able to, even with the photography, as I love photography, but I would love to be able to retire from that, be teaching courses and giving back to the community, and be making passive income. That is an asset. That is not truly me working in any type of business in less than 5 years, and be very comfortable doing it. So how successful do I need to be for that is really my question.
Yeah.
How much do I actually need to be looking into and listening to that? I think it was the wealth management. You guys had talked about the taxes and things like that. Like that's my next big step, I think, is to look at the overall, where am I at? What am I doing? And how do I get this damn ball like organized and get creative with it? My mind goes like this, same thing. Let's do this, you know, went from doing photography to, let me start, let me do the Airbnb. Let's build another Airbnb. Let's build another Airbnb. Let me start a lingerie company. Now I have a lingerie company. Now I want to start to invest, which is all great things. But I feel like this, and I really need to feel like this. So I mean, I don't know what it takes to be that successful to achieve what I want. If that makes sense.
Something that I would encourage you to do, and listeners as well, at whatever success level you may be at, I think that it could be a good thing even for someone who has no success, to kind of stop chasing different things just to be as successful as possible. So we did a thing this year where we built out, what does our dream life actually look like? And it was a very long list. We went, what does our grocery bill look like?
Very detailed.
What is everything? And it came out to $40,000 a month, which was a lot less than, frankly, I expected. It's $480,000 a year. And so now everything that we do is, so for that requires that we invest a certain amount at a certain percentage each year to reach that goal in a given timeline. And that percentage and rate will change depending on your timeline. You know, we have particular constraints within that. We don't need to, I guess we could get into the numbers at some point, but now everything falls under that. And if it doesn't meet that, we don't do it, you know, which is, it's freeing, frankly, to have that focus. So you could think about what is something that you want to do is to rehab that room, to get it ready for to rent to someone at this rate. Does that meet my financial thresholds that get to this end state? And then at the same time, you're like, is that enough that, or is it at a number that it's worth having that person in my house? So you kind of do with that, that balance there. And the other thing that I'd like to say is, have you ever looked at the difference between happiness and fulfillment? You know, kind of what I mentioned in my why?
Gosh, you know, that's been another struggle. That's been something that I've definitely been looking at this last 2 years, because many times I feel numb. There's times that I feel numb. I don't feel like, you know, and I'm questioning, am I truly happy? Or is happy different from joy or fulfillment? You know, those have been my question, happiness and joy being two different things.
So fundamentally, happiness is self-serving, fulfillment is for others. And once I started to look at that and I realized if I go too far in one way, if I'm really unhappy, I take a step back and I look at kind of that equation. I realize that I'm probably 90, 10, 100, 0 in one way. And I'm happiest when there's balance. So I encourage people to, one, start to do some research into that principle. There's a bunch of stuff out there. Tony Robbins is huge on it. And I think that'll help you a long way.
I would say happiness is something that's more kind of like acute in the moment. And so obviously if you're just living your life like that, like cocaine, then you're way on one spectrum. And if you're constantly just doing stuff for other people.
Just smells so good.
If you're constantly doing stuff for other people, you're just going to be exhausted. So it's finding that balance.
I love it. You guys, thank you for your time and your knowledge, your wisdom, your inspiration. I really do look up to you guys. I love what you guys are doing. I love the ventures that you guys are taking. I do want to stay close to you. I really want to pick your brain a lot more too, because, and I know I can pick both of your guys' brain, but there's a lot of things that I'm ready to do now. I'm coming out of that, and I'm just going to be honest, coming out of a fearful state of because I'm very, very strategic about all my moves, and I'm also very safe. Yeah. Somebody had told me, you're not an investor. And I said, why? And they said, because you're too scared.
Too safe.
Yeah.
And too safe. Like, you want to know what's the outcome, what's this in it. And I've lived that way, and it's done us well thus far, but now I'm ready to take some risk.
Yeah.
I feel like we're in a better position to be able to do that. So I'd love to talk to you more
Absolutely.
on the sideline about that. So.
Yeah.
Well, some podcast accountability, because for the years that I've known you now, I've offered every single time I see you that you can reach out to me at any time.
I know.
You don't. So if any of you guys see Leah, ask her if she's reached out to Amanda or Lindsey lately to troubleshoot a problem.
I'm going to. That's I'll be another thing. I'm introvert. Many people think that I'm very extroverted, and I'm not. And that's just because in my zone and in my comfort and around my people, I am super extroverted. But when I get out, I'm just kind of like, oh, let me just get quiet. I'm an observer and I listen. And so that's been another one of my goals is to get out, talk to people more, get out of my comfort, level. And so, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'm going to bring us out on some music. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not, but this is my jam out right here.
Love it.
Thank you guys. Thank you.